Stop. The tie is poisoned, shouted the African maid. Arab executive cancels wedding. What the most glamorous wedding of the decade turned into a nightmare before the vows were even spoken. Picture this. The grand ballroom of the Burj Al Arab glittering with diamonds and royalty, cameras flashing from every corner, and one of the wealthiest Arab executives about to marry the woman of his dreams. The world was watching. Guests were holding their breath, and everything seemed perfect until a trembling African maid burst into the room and screamed the unthinkable. Stop. The tie is poisoned. In that single moment, silence fell. Gasps echoed across the hall, and the groom's face froze in shock. Who had dared to betray him on this sacred day? And more importantly, why? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring and dramatic stories straight to you. Stay with me until the very end of the story, because the truth behind that poisoned tie will not only shake a billionaire's world, it will also leave you questioning who you can truly trust. The chandeliers of the Burj Al Arab ballroom blaze like 1,000 suns, scattering light across crystal glasses and marble floors. Guests from every corner of the globe had gathered, sheiks, ambassadors, oil magnates, and royalty, each seated at gilded tables, dressed in gowns and tuxedos worth fortunes. Reporters and paparazzi lined the edges, cameras ready to capture every priceless detail of the wedding of the year. At the center of it all stood Khalid al-Mansour, the Arab executive whose fortune spanned industries from real estate to energy. His sharp jawline and immaculately tailored tuxedo exuded confidence. Every movement he made carried the weight of legacy. Every word he spoke was measured, precise. For years, Khalid had been the very image of untouchable power. And tonight, he was about to take a bride, an elegant heiress from a well-connected European family named Isabelle Laurent. The air was heavy with anticipation. Guests whispered about the merger of power this marriage represented. Some claimed it was love, others said it was strategy, but everyone agreed on one thing. It was a spectacle unlike any other. As the orchestra played softly, Khalid adjusted the sapphire blue tie around his neck, a piece designed by Cartier, rumored to cost over $200,000. He had received it as a gift that morning, delivered in a velvet box with a note in delicate handwriting. For luck on your happiest day. He had not questioned it. After all, who would dare to interfere with him? The bride prepared herself in a separate chamber, attendants fussing over her veil, makeup, and gown. The ceremony was minutes away. The hall was electric, buzzing with the combined anticipation of hundreds of eyes waiting for perfection. And then, chaos shattered the illusion. A voice, sharp with terror, cut through the music like a knife. Stop. The tie is poisoned. The orchestra screeched to silence. Every head turned toward the sound. There, trembling at the grand doorway, stood a young African maid in a faded uniform, her wide eyes filled with panic. Her hands shook as she pointed directly at Khalid's chest. Gasps erupted. Glasses clinked as guests dropped their champagne. Isabel's mother clutched her pearls, while foreign dignitaries muttered in confusion. The bride's attendants froze, stunned into silence. Khalid's face went stone still. His dark eyes locked on the maid, analyzing her every twitch, every breath. His security team, massive men in black suits, surged forward immediately, forming a protective barrier around him. Who are you? Khalid's voice thundered, echoing against marble and glass. He did not shout often, but when he did, the entire room felt a tremor of authority. The maid, her voice cracking, stammered, "Please, sir, the tie. It's poisoned. If you wear it, you will not live through the night." Laughter broke out in one corner, nervous, disbelieving. Someone muttered that the girl was insane. Another hissed that she should be dragged away. Yet the tension in the air was undeniable. No one dared to dismiss her words outright, not when the stakes were life and death. Khalid slowly raised his hand, halting his security guards. His instincts, honed from decades of surviving boardroom betrayals and hostile business takeovers, told him that truth often came dressed in madness. "Let her speak," he commanded. The maid swallowed hard. Tears welled in her eyes as she explained, her words tumbling out in desperation. "I was cleaning the service corridor this morning when I overheard Two men speaking. They said the tie was treated with a contact poison, that once it touched your skin, you would collapse within hours. I swear to you, I am not lying. I beg you to believe me. A ripple of unease spread across the hall. Poison. The word itself carried ancient fear, a weapon of kings and assassins. Khalid felt the weight of every gaze in the room. The tie around his neck suddenly felt heavier, like a serpent coiled against his throat. He reached up, fingers brushing the silk fabric, and for the first time that night, doubt cracked through his composure. Isabel, pale and trembling, rushed forward. This is madness. She's lying, Khalid. Do not listen to her. Someone put her up to this to ruin our wedding. Her voice was shrill, desperate to restore control. But Khalid did not answer her. Instead, he stared at the maid. There was something in her eyes, fear, yes, but also sincerity, not the rehearsed act of someone seeking attention, but the raw urgency of a woman who knew she was risking everything by speaking out. Your name, Khalid demanded. Amina, sir, she whispered. Amina. He repeated it slowly, tasting the weight of it. Then, with deliberate calm, he tugged the sapphire blue tie from his neck and held it up for all to see. The silk shimmered under the chandeliers, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Test it, Khalid ordered, handing it to his head of security. The guards exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. Within minutes, a portable scanner from the security team confirmed faint traces of a toxin on the fibers. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to kill. The ballroom erupted. Cries of horror, shouts of disbelief, the frantic rustle of dresses and chairs. Isabel staggered backward, nearly fainting. This cannot be true, she whispered. But Khalid was already moving, his sharp mind assembling the puzzle. Who had sent the tie? Who stood to gain from his death? Why target him on his wedding day, in front of the world? He turned to Amina, who stood trembling at the edge of the chaos. You saved my life, he said simply. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I only did what was right, sir. Khalid's jaw tightened. And for that, you will never again serve as a maid. The announcement shocked everyone. But before anyone could question him, Khalid raised his hand once more, silencing the crowd. His gaze swept over Isabel, whose face had turned ashen. He studied her carefully, the doubt in his eyes unmistakable. Cancel the wedding, Khalid declared. His words fell like thunder. There will be no vows tonight. The ballroom fell silent, save for the clicking of cameras capturing the most shocking scandal of the decade. And as Khalid walked away from the altar, his life spared by a maid's warning, a storm of betrayal and secrets brewed in the shadows. Because if his enemies had dared to strike at his wedding, it meant the danger was far from over. He knew one thing for certain. The truth would come out, and when it did, it would shake empires. The ballroom still buzzed with the echo of Khalid's words. Cancel the wedding, guests whispered behind jeweled hands, their voices carrying a mix of shock and scandal. The bride's family looked mortified. Isabel's father with his jaw clenched, his knuckles white against the stem of his champagne glass. Cameras still flashed, capturing the downfall of what was supposed to be the most glamorous union of the year. But Khalid al-Mansur had left them behind. Surrounded by a wall of bodyguards, he marched down the corridor of the Burj Al Arab, his polished shoes striking against marble with cold authority. Amina, the maid, followed hesitantly behind, her head bowed, terrified but compelled to obey when he ordered her come. The air outside the ballroom felt cooler, freer. But inside Khalid's chest burned questions that gave him no relief. Who had sent the poison tie? Why had Isabel reacted with such desperation to silence the maid? And why had his instincts told him she knew more than she claimed? He entered his private suite on the top floor, a space reserved only for him. Luxurious, yet minimal. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering skyline of Dubai. Khalid stood before the glass, his reflection fractured by the city lights, and loosened his collar. His life had nearly ended that night, and he would not rest until he uncovered the truth. He turned sharply to Amina, who lingered near the doorway, hands trembling. Tell me everything. Do not leave out a single word. Her voice quivered. I was cleaning near the service elevators this morning. Two men in suits were speaking in French. They didn't know I understood. They said the gift box with the tie had been prepared carefully. They said once it touched your skin, no antidote would save you. One of them mentioned, the wedding must not happen. Khalid narrowed his eyes. Did you recognize them? She shook her head. No, sir, but they wore pins. Small gold pins on their jackets. Like a crest. A sharp tension coiled in Khalid's chest. A crest. His mind sifted through the dozens of corporations, families, and political entities he had crossed. That detail was a clue, but also a threat. Whoever had dared this was organized, wealthy, and bold. You realize the risk you took, Khalid said, his voice quieter now. Had you been wrong, had the tie been harmless, your life would be over by now. Amina lowered her gaze. I know, sir, but I could not stay silent. Even if no one believed me, I had to try. For a moment, Khalid studied her. She was young, no older than 22. Her uniform was plain, her shoes worn, her hair tied back with a simple cloth. Yet her courage had cut through a sea of fear and lies. You are not just a maid anymore, he finally said. From tonight, you will remain under my protection. Her eyes widened. Gratitude and disbelief mingled in her tears. Thank you, sir. But what will happen now? Khalid's gaze hardened as he turned back to the window, the city sprawling beneath him like a chessboard. Now, I find out who wanted me dead. Meanwhile, Isabel sat in her dressing chamber, her white gown pulling around her like a fallen empire. Her family raged around her. Do you understand what you've done? Her father hissed. The Al-Mansur alliance was our future, and now he has humiliated us in front of the entire world. I didn't poison him. Isabel cried, clutching her veil as if it could shield her. I knew nothing of it. Her mother's voice was cold. And yet, when that girl spoke, you rushed to silence her. Why, Isabel? What did you know? Isabel's lips trembled. She thought of the velvet box, the note, the moment she placed a tie into Khalid's hands earlier that morning. She had received it from a courier, claiming it was from a family friend. She hadn't questioned it. Why would she? But now, the memory clawed at her. Had she been used? Was she the unknowing weapon that delivered death to her own groom? Tears smeared her mascara. If Khalid discovered the truth, she would be finished. Not just her engagement, but her name, her family, everything. And deep down, Isabel wondered, had this been orchestrated not to kill Khalid, but to destroy her? Back in the suite, Khalid made a decision. He summoned his chief of security, a man named Tariq, broad-shouldered, loyal, with eyes as sharp as steel. I want every guest investigated. Cross-check every courier who entered the hotel today. Start with the bridal chambers. And discreetly, if Isabel's family is involved, I want proof before they know I suspect them. Yes, sir. Tariq bowed his head. Khalid's thoughts swirled. Betrayal on a wedding day was not merely personal. It was political. His empire stretched across 3 continents, and enemies lurked behind every smile. But this was different. This was intimate, precise. Whoever had planned it wanted not just his death, but his humiliation. Amina spoke softly from the corner. Sir, if they know I warned you, they might come after me. Khalid met her gaze. For a brief moment, his stern mask softened. They will not touch you. From this moment, you are under my name. The promise carried weight. In the Arab world, protection under the Al-Mansur name was a shield stronger than any law. But even as he spoke, Khalid's mind burned with suspicion. His instincts whispered that the threat was closer than he wished to believe. The following morning, headlines exploded across the globe. Arab billionaire cancels wedding after poison plot exposed. African Maid saves executive from assassination attempt. Was the bride involved? Khalid read them in silence, seated in his study. Each headline painted him as a man betrayed, a targeted conspiracy. But worse, they painted Amina as a symbol. Hero to some, liability to others. The phone on his desk buzzed. It was an encrypted call from an old ally in London. Khalid answered, his tone curt. You've made enemies, my friend, the voice said. Word on the street is someone paid millions for your downfall. And the wedding? It was never about love. It was about power. Canceling it may have saved your life, but it has also started a war. Khaled's jaw tightened. He glanced at Amina, who stood quietly nearby, unaware of the storm that was only beginning. He spoke with iron in his voice. Then let them come. They will learn that Khaled al-Mansur does not fall to poison ties or whispered threats. Whoever orchestrated this, whoever tried to turn my wedding into my funeral, will regret underestimating me. Outside, the desert sun rose over Dubai, gilding the skyline in gold. But within Khaled's heart, the light was gone. What had begun as a celebration had become a battlefield, and the war for truth was only beginning. Khaled did not sleep that night. While the city of Dubai glittered beneath his penthouse like a sea of diamonds, his mind remained restless, pacing through possibilities, suspects, betrayals. The poison tie was more than an attempt on his life. It was a message. Someone had dared to strike at him in public, in front of the world. That men his enemies were confident, perhaps even untouchable. At dawn, he stood on his balcony overlooking the Arabian Gulf, the wind tugging at his silk robe. The smell of salt and sand filled the air. His phone buzzed on the table beside him, a secure line flashing with Tariq's name. They found the courier, Tariq reported. His voice was gravelly from a night without rest. The man who delivered the tide to Isabel's chamber vanished an hour after the wedding was canceled. Security cameras caught his face, but he used falsified credentials. We traced him to the docks. Then nothing. Disappeared. Khaled's jaw tightened. So it was planned with precision. What about the crest Amina mentioned? There's more. Tariq hesitated, which he rarely did. The gold pins worn by the men she overheard. They matched the emblem of the Loron family's oldest rivals, the Duval Corporation. A cold silence fell. Khaled's gaze hardened as the waves crashed below. The Duvals, a French dynasty with interests in energy and shipping, had long competed with him for influence in Europe. Their methods were ruthless. But would they dare such a personal strike? And yet, his thoughts could not shake Isabel. She had handed him the tie. She had insisted Amina's words were lies. Was she a pawn or a conspirator? Bring Isabel to me, Khaled ordered. Hours later, Isabel stood in his study, no longer radiant in silk and diamonds, but pale, sleepless, her hair pulled back in disarray. Her family had protested, but Khaled's summons was not to be ignored. She tried to hold herself with dignity, but her voice faltered. Khaled, please, you must believe me. I knew nothing. The tie was delivered, and I thought it was a gift. I swear to you. Khaled circled her slowly, like a hawk measuring prey. His voice was calm, dangerously so. And yet, when Amina warned me, your first instinct was to silence her, not to ask for proof, not to protect me. Why? Tears welled in her eyes. Because it was madness. Do you know how it sounded in front of the entire world? I thought she was trying to sabotage us. I was afraid of losing everything we had built, our future, our family's alliance. Her words trembled with truth or with fear well rehearsed. Khaled's instincts warred within him. He had survived in business because he trusted those instincts, because he could read people with surgical precision. And yet in this woman, he saw contradictions he could not untangle. You handed me death, Isabel, he said finally, his voice cold. Whether knowingly or not, and until I know which, you will not stand at my side. Isabel broke then, sobs racking her frame. She collapsed into a chair, clutching her head in her hands. If you cast me aside, my family will be ruined. Please, Khaled, believe me. But Khaled had already turned away. His eyes fell on Amina, who had been standing silently near the corner of the room, watching the exchange with quiet unease. She lowered her gaze when he met her eyes, but he could see the flicker of sympathy she felt even for Isabel. That sympathy, he realized, was why he trusted her, because she had no motive, no gain. That evening, Tariq returned with new intelligence. We tracked financial movements linked to the courier, offshore accounts, shell companies. All roads lead to Paris. The Duval Corporation is at the center. Khaled's lips pressed into a hard line. His suspicions had narrowed to a dangerous truth. The Duvals had been circling him for years, undermining his contracts, whispering against him in boardrooms. But an assassination? That was an escalation he could not ignore. They will regret this, Khalid murmured. His voice was soft, but Tarek knew it was a promise of war. Sir, Tarek added carefully, we must also consider Isabel's role. The courier delivered the tie to her chamber. Even if she was a pawn, she is now a liability. The world already questions her. The headlines. He placed a stack of newspapers on the desk. Khalid scanned them. Bride or betrayer. Isabel Laurent at the heart of poison scandal. Billionaire saved by Maid, heiress left in shame. The humiliation was global. Isabel's family name was sinking, and Khalid knew she was clinging to him not out of love, but survival. He dismissed Tarek, but the decision weighed on him. He had canceled the wedding to protect his life, but the war that followed threatened everything he had built. That night, as Khalid prepared to retire, there was a knock at his door. Amina entered hesitantly, her eyes lowered. Sir, she whispered, there's something I must tell you. I did not say everything before. When I overheard those men, they mentioned a name, not just the Duvals. They mentioned someone close to you, someone they said was already inside your house. Khalid froze. His blood ran cold. Inside his house. Who? He demanded. I don't know. Amina said quickly, fear in her eyes. They did not say, only that this person ensured the tie would reach you, that they were waiting for the perfect moment. Betrayal from within. It was worse than Khalid had imagined. His empire was not under attack on the outside alone. It was rotting from within. He stepped closer to Amina, his voice low. From now on, you will tell me everything you hear. Do not hide anything. Your silence could kill me. Amina nodded, trembling. Yes, sir. Khalid turned back to the window. The night sky stretched like black velvet over the city. The realization gnawed at him. The enemy was not just the Duvals. Someone he trusted, someone within his circle, had opened the door for them. And until he discovered who, every shadow in his empire was suspect. The next morning, a letter arrived at Khalid's suite, delivered by an anonymous hand. The envelope bore no seal, no name. Inside, a single line was scrawled in precise handwriting. The maid saved you once. She will not save you again. Khalid's hands tightened around the paper. His enemies knew about Amina. They had marked her as a target. His decision was immediate. Tarek, he said, calling his guard captain, double the security. The girl does not leave my side. If Amina had risked her life to save him, then he would risk his to protect her. But deep inside, Khalid understood the chilling truth. The game had shifted. This was no longer just about his survival. It was about loyalty, betrayal, and the war between dynasties. And the next move, he realized, might cost him more than just his empire. It might cost him the only people left he could trust. The note sat on Khalid's desk like a curse. The maid saved you once. She will not save you again. He read it again and again, the words etching themselves deeper into his mind. This was not a warning. It was a promise. Amina's life was now the target. From the tall windows of his penthouse, Khalid gazed out at Dubai's shimmering skyline. He had built his empire to be untouchable, yet tonight he felt the walls closing in. If his enemies could strike at him during his wedding, they could strike anywhere. Behind him, Amina stood silently by the door, wringing her hands. She had not dared to speak since the note was delivered. Her eyes betrayed fear, but also guilt. She whispered, "Sir, if they want me dead, maybe I should go. I don't want to endanger you." Khalid turned sharply. "No, you saved my life. You remain under my protection. If they come for you, they face me first." Her lips parted as though to argue, but conviction in his voice silenced her. Hours later, Tarek entered with news that tightened the noose around Khalid's chest. Several staff members were not who they claimed to be. False documents, fabricated histories. They infiltrated us weeks ago. Sir, this was planned. Khalid's eyes burned. And you let this pass unnoticed? The accusation stung. Tarek straightened his broad shoulders, meeting his master's gaze. I failed, yes, but not by betrayal. If you suspect me, strip me of rank Monitor me, scour every part of my life. You'll find loyalty. Silence hung between them, heavy as stone. For years, Khalid had trusted Tark with his life. But tonight, trust felt like a dying currency. Find proof, he said at last. Until then, no one is above suspicion. Meanwhile, Isabel's disgrace grew unbearable. She was branded the poisoned bride, chased by reporters. Her father raged in private meetings. Her mother wept over lost influence. But Isabel herself was not ready to surrender. Late at night, she penned a letter. Khalid, I was a pawn. Someone wanted me destroyed too. Please, do not abandon me in shame. You owe me truth as much as I owe it to myself. The letter never reached him. Somewhere in the chain of delivery, it was intercepted. Isabel did not know it yet, but every move she made was already being watched. The following morning, Targ returned grim-faced. One of our investigators is dead. The same toxin that coated the tie. Khalid clenched his fists. His empire was being eaten alive, his people silenced one by one. Whoever stood against him was both merciless and organized. Amina, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. Sir, I need to tell you something I kept back. Before the wedding, I saw one of your guards speaking secretly to strangers. When he noticed me, his eyes frightened me. His name was Omar. The name landed like a blade. Omar was not just a guard. He had been handpicked by Tariq. Bring him to me, Khalid commanded. That evening, Omar was dragged into the suite in chains. His lips split from resisting. Even bound, he glared with defiance. You think your wealth shields you, Al-Mansur. Omar spat. But your empire is already crumbling. You cannot stop what's coming. Khalid's voice was cold. Who paid you? Omar's smile was thin, almost mocking. Look closer to home. You sleep beside your enemies. Before anyone could react, Omar bit down on something hidden in his mouth. Foam spilled from his lips, his body convulsed, and within moments he lay dead on the floor. Amina gasped, covering her mouth in horror. Khalid, however, remained motionless, his face carved from stone. His enemies were thorough. They left no witnesses, no trail. Dispose of him, Khalid said, when the guards carried the body away. Khalid turned to Amina. This is a world you stepped into when you spoke. There's no going back. Her voice shook, but her words were steady. Then I will face it. Better danger with truth than safety with lies. For a moment, Khalid studied her. She was terrified, yet resolute. Something about her courage struck him, cutting through his weariness. That night, sleep eluded him. Omar's final words, look closer to home, echoed in his skull. Betrayal was not only external. Someone inside his circle was guiding the enemy's hand. Could it be Tariq, his most trusted man? Isabel, once a bride-to-be? Or even Amina herself, whose sudden arrival in his life had altered everything? The thought gnawed at him. Yet deep down, his instincts resisted. Amina's fear had been too raw, her courage too reckless to be staged. Still, Khalid knew. Suspicion was his only weapon now. Elsewhere in Dubai, two men met in a darkened villa. One bore the emblem of the Duval Corporation. The other remained cloaked in shadow, his voice calm. The assassination failed, the Duval emissary said. The Maid interfered. But our ally remains close. When the time comes, he will strike from within. And the Maid? The cloaked man asked. The emissary smirked. She won't live long enough to save him twice. A ring glinted on the cloaked man's finger, an emblem Khalid would have recognized instantly had he been there. Back in his penthouse, Khalid stood once more before the vast windows, the city stretching beneath him like a chessboard. His empire was vast, his enemies hidden, his allies uncertain. They believe I will fall, he whispered to his reflection. But they are wrong. I will tear apart every lie, every betrayal, until nothing remains but truth. He turned then, his gaze falling on Amina. She stood quietly in the corner, her posture small, but her presence unshakable. For the first time in years, Khalid realized protecting her had become more than duty. She was a thread to humanity, in a world growing darker by the hour. But death had already stepped through his doors. And when it revealed its true face, it would wound deeper than Khalid could imagine. Khalid awoke before dawn, his thoughts sharper than the blade of a dagger. Omar's words haunted him. Look closer to home. Whoever had betrayed him was still near, still watching, still feeding the enemy information from within his walls. And if the intercepted letter and the death of his investigator proved anything, it was this. Time was running out. Amina moved quietly through the suite, placing fresh tea on the table. She had grown more cautious since the note arrived, glancing often at shadows, jumping at every sudden noise. Yet her loyalty never wavered. Khalid studied her for a long moment. She had risked everything to save him, and in return, he had placed her in mortal danger. "Stay close to me today," he told her, his voice low. "I feel the storm tightening." She nodded, clutching her hands together. "Yes, sir." Later that morning, Tarek returned with a grim update. "We have traced the poison used on Omar and the investigator. It was manufactured in a facility controlled by the Duval Corporation. They're behind this, without question, but they did not act alone. They had help from inside." Khalid's eyes narrowed. "And have you found which of my people is a traitor?" Tarek hesitated. For a heartbeat, Khalid thought he saw something flicker in his trusted guard's eyes, uncertainty or perhaps guilt. But then Tarek's voice steadied. "Not yet, sir, but I will not stop until I do." Khalid dismissed him, though unease gnawed at his chest. Could Omar's final words have been true? Could Tarek, the man who had stood by his side for a decade, be the serpent in his house? That evening, as the city lights glittered below, Khalid sat in his study, reviewing financial reports and security logs. Amina sat quietly nearby, reading in silence, her presence oddly comforting amidst the storm. Suddenly, a sound, a faint click at the balcony doors. Khalid's instincts flared. Before he could rise, the glass shattered inward. A masked man lunged into the room, dagger gleaming under the chandelier. His target was not Khalid. It was Amina. She screamed as the intruder charged, but Khalid moved faster than thought. He seized a heavy bronze sculpture from the desk and swung it with brutal precision. The blow sent the man crashing against the wall, unconscious. Guards stormed in seconds later, weapons drawn, hauling the assassin away. Amina trembled, tears streaking her cheeks. Khalid knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "You see now, they will stop at nothing." Her voice broke. "Why me? Why do they want me dead?" "Because you carry truth," he said, "and truth terrifies them." But as the adrenaline faded, Khalid's mind sharpened again. How had the assassin breached his penthouse? Security was impenetrable. Unless someone inside had opened the door, he called Tarek. "Explain how this man reached my balcony. You promised me there were no gaps." Tarek's jaw tightened. He must have had help, but I swear to you, not from me. Khalid studied him in silence. Doubt cut deeper with every word. Omar's last warning thundered in his mind. Look closer to home. The next morning, an envelope appeared on Khalid's desk. No courier, no guard could explain how it arrived. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Tarek, his face unmistakable, meeting secretly with a man wearing the Duval crest. Amina gasped when she saw it. "Sir, it's him." For a long moment, Khalid said nothing. Rage boiled in his chest, but so did sorrow. Tarek had been more than a guard. He had been a brother in arms, a confidant. To see him now as a traitor was a wound deeper than any blade. Khalid summoned Tarek that evening. The man entered confidently, as if unaware his treachery had been revealed. Khalid held up the photograph in silence. Tarek's eyes flickered, just for an instant, but it was enough. "It was you," Khalid said quietly. Tarek did not deny it. Instead, he exhaled slowly, as though relieved to shed the mask. "You built an empire on fear, Khalid. The Duvals promised me freedom from your shadow. And you? You trusted me so blindly you never saw it coming." Khalid's face hardened. "I gave you everything. Loyalty, power, and this is how you repay me." Tarek's lips curled into a cold smile. "Everything dies eventually, even empires." Before he could move, guards rushed forward, seizing him. But Khalid stepped closer, his voice like iron. No empire falls while I still draw breath, and no traitor lives after betraying me. For the first time, Tarek's confidence cracked. He struggled, shouting curses, but Khalid turned his back. Take him away. When the door closed, silence hung heavy in the room. Amina looked at Khalid, her eyes filled with questions. How do you carry this burden? To be betrayed by those closest to you? Khalid leaned against a window, his reflection fractured by the city lights. His voice was quieter now, almost weary. Because I must. Power is not a crown. It is a chain. And the heavier it becomes, the fewer you can trust to hold it with you. Amina approached timidly. Yet you trusted me, and I will not betray that. Khalid turned, meeting her gaze. For a moment, the mask of the billionaire executive slipped, revealing the man beneath, scarred, tired, but still burning with fire. Perhaps, he said softly, you are the only one I can trust. News of Tarek's betrayal spread quickly. Headlines declared him a traitor, a wolf among Khalid's loyal guard. The world gasped at the scandal, but Khalid himself felt no victory. His empire was preserved, but at a cost measured not in money, but in trust and scars. That night, as dawn's first light spilled over the desert, Khalid stood once more at his balcony. Amina stood beside him, silent, watching the horizon. They tried to kill me, he said, his voice steady. They tried to break me, but I still stand, and because of you I still breathe. She lowered her eyes, humbled. I only did what was right, sir. Khalid's gaze lingered on her. And sometimes that is rarer than loyalty bought with gold. The sun rose higher, bathing the city in fire. A new day had come, and with it a reminder. Empires could crumble, allies could betray, enemies could poison and strike. But courage, even for the most unlikely of souls, could change the course of fate. Khalid's voice carried softly into morning air. If this story teaches anything, it is this. Trust may be broken, wealth may fade, but courage is eternal.